Hello, this is the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Thank you so much for tuning into this video in which I will go through what will be on your test coming up. So that includes measurement, simple interest, and linear relations. Let's start with measurement and converting units. You probably know how to convert between millimeters, centimeters, meters, and all that. These are units of length. But what about converting between square units? Well, I want to show why we need to change it a little bit. So here I've drawn a square that's 1 meter by 1 meter. So the area of this square is just 1 times 1 meter squared. But 1 meter is 100 centimeters. So this square, its area is 100 centimeters by 100 centimeters, which is actually 10,000 centimeters squared. So there are 100 centimeters in a meter, but there are actually 100 squared or 10,000 square centimeters in a meter squared. So when you are converting square units, like millimeters squared and so on, you actually need to square each of these conversion factors. All of these numbers here has to be squared. So similarly, if you were converting cubic units, you'd have to raise each of these to the power of 3. So make sure you know this chart, and conversions are easier. So 8,000 centimeters squared, I want to convert to meters squared. So from the chart, if I'm in centimeters squared, I want to go to meters squared, I divide by 100 squared. So in your calculator, you put 8,000 divided by 100 squared, you just get 0.8. So how about converting meters squared to millimeters squared? So what I have to do is first convert to centimeters squared. So 3 meters squared, I go 3 times 100 squared, that's actually 30,000 centimeters squared. If I now want to put this into millimeters squared, to go from centimeters squared to millimeters squared, I times by 10 squared. 30,000 times 10 squared is actually 3 million. 3 meters squared is 3 million millimeters squared. All right, let's now look at calculating area. So here we're going to find the area of two composite shapes. Let's look at this one first. So this whole shape is a weird shape. We don't even have a name for it. We can't find its area directly. What we can do, however, is divide it into shapes that we do know. Here we have a trapezium and a semicircle. So the area of a trapezium is just perpendicular height divided by 2 times a plus b. Whenever you see h in a formula for area, volume, anything like that, it always means perpendicular height. So for the trapezium, the perpendicular height is 9, so I'll just rub out h and change it to 9. Now, a plus b refers to the two parallel sides. Doesn't matter which you call a and which you call b, you just have to add them together. So, putting that in a calculator, we get 126, and it's going to be in centimeters squared. So 126 centimeters squared is AT, the area of the trapezium. Now let's find the area of the semicircle. So the area of a circle, we need the formula pi times radius squared. Because this is only half a circle, we need to divide by 2. So for this semicircle here, the diameter is 10, so the radius will be exactly half that. It will be 5. So pi times radius squared over 2, because it's half a circle. Putting that in our calculator, we get this number there. So the total area of this shape here is just going to be 126, the trapezium, plus the area of the circle. It's going to be about 165.27. Make sure you write the units. So this composite shape over here, I'm going to find the area shaded yellow. So this shape here is like a 5-sided shape. We don't really have a formula. However, what we do know is the area of a parallelogram and the area of a triangle. So I'm just going to find the area of the parallelogram and subtract the area of the triangle. So the area of the parallelogram is just base times perpendicular height. We don't care about the slant height. It's just going to be 12 times 8, which is 96. Now we're going to subtract the area of the triangle. So the formula for area of a triangle is base. So the base of this triangle is 12 times perpendicular height is 6. And for a triangle, you must divide by 2. So if you want to put that straight in your calculator, you can. It's just going to be 60 meters squared. All right, let's now look at surface area and volume. So we find the volume or surface area of prisms, 3D shapes. So the formula are here. So let's look at this, which is a triangular prism. So first we're going to find the volume. So the volume is just the area of the triangle. So the area of the triangle is base times perpendicular height divided by 2. So it's 24 meters squared. We take the area of the triangle and we times by the height of the prism. When I say height of prism, we mean the dimension that's perpendicular to the base, and the base of a triangular prism is a triangle. So this is just 24 times 7, or 168 meters cubed. Of course, volumes in cubic units. So let's look at finding the total surface area. That's what TSA stands for. So any triangular prism has 2 triangles, one at the front, one at the back, and 3 rectangles. So we've already figured out that the area of the triangles is 8 times 6 over 2. I'm going to times that by 2 because there are 2 triangles. So now let's calculate the area of each rectangle. There's a rectangle up here that has a width of 7. We need to know this dimension though in order to find the area. So to do that we can use Pythagoras. So it's just going to be the square root of 6 squared plus 8 squared. It's going to be 10 meters using Pythagoras. So this rectangle here will have an area of 10 times 7. So there'll be a rectangle on the bottom of this prism that'll be 8 by 7. And there will be a rectangle at the back that will be 6 by 7 along. So you can put that straight on your calculator. You get 216. Surface area, always in square units. All right, let's now look at finding the volume and surface area of the cylinder. So the volume of any cylinder is just the area of the circular base times the height. So the area of the circle at the bottom is pi times, now the diameter is 5, so the radius is 2.5. Pi r squared multiplied by the height. So putting that on our calculator, we get about 98.17 centimeters cubed. So what about the total surface area? So the total surface area is 2 times pi times radius squared plus 2 pi times radius times height, and the height again is 5. Let's put this straight. 117.8 centimeters squared. So the last thing I want to do in measurement is go through how to find a length. So in the previous examples, I gave you all the lengths or the dimensions. You found the measurement, the area, volume, surface area. So what do you do when it's the opposite? When you're given the surface area or volume and you have to find a dimension? Well, follow these steps. Write the formula, substitute what you know, and solve the resulting equation. So for example, I'm telling you a rectangular prism has surface area 426, length 9, width 5. You need to find the height. You need to find a dimension. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by writing the formula for total surface area of a rectangular prism. So it's just 2LW plus 2WH plus 2LH. That's because there are 6 rectangular faces of a rectangular prism and they come in pairs. So now I'm going to substitute what I know. So I know the total surface area is 426. So I'm going to change total surface area to 426. I know L, the length is 9, so I'm going to replace L with 9 and W with 5. So 2 times W times H plus 2 times length times height. Okay, so now I have an equation with one unknown, which is the H, so I can solve that. Let's just make this a little easier to work with. So 2 by 9 by 5 is 90, 2 by 5 by H is 8. What I'm going to do is subtract 90 from both sides. So subtracting 90 from 426 gives me 336. 9 is gone from this side. 10H plus 18H is 28H. So this equation's easy to solve. 28 times h is 336. If I want to know what h is, I have to undo timesing by 28 by dividing by 28. So 336 divided 28 is 12. The height of this prism is 12. Let's now look at some simple interest. So interest is either additional money earned when you invest or additional money that you owe when you borrowed. Whether you borrow or invest, the formula for simple interest is the same, I equals PRT over 100, where I is the interest, P is the initial amount, the amount you start with, and R is the rate as a percent. Now, T means time, but it must be in the same units as R. Usually R is given as PA, per annum, per year, so the time must be in years. So let's look at this question here. I invest $5,000 at 2.8% per annum for 42 months. How much money will I have in total? So let's calculate the interest using the formula above. So interest is P, how much you started with, times by R, times by T over 100. Now there is a problem here. The rate is PA, per annum, so T I need to change per years. So instead of using 42 months, 42 divided by 12 is 3.5. 42 months is 3.5 years. I need to use 3.5 for years because the rate is per year. So putting that in a calculator, we get $490. Now it's really important you read the question. The interest earned here would be $490, but the question didn't ask us how much interest, it asked how much will I have in total. So the total amount you'll have the $5,000 plus the $490 earned in interest, so you'll have $5,490 in total, and we're done. All right, let's now look at rearranging the simple interest formula. So I can rearrange the simple interest formula, I equals PRT over 100, to make P, R, or T the subject. You use this one if you're trying to calculate the principal or initial amount, use this one if you want to calculate the rate, and this if you want to calculate the time. So let's look at this example here. I want my investment to grow by $2,000 over the next 4 years. How much must I invest if the bank offers 2.5% per annum simple interest? So this question, how much will I need to invest, is asking you to find P. So we're going to use the P formula, 100I over RT. So it's going to be 100 times, now the interest is 2,000 because the interest is the amount by which your investment grows. So R will be 2.5, that's per annum or per year, and T is 4 years. So putting that in calculator, we get 20,000. You would need to invest $20,000 at 2.5% per annum for 4 years in order that you earn $2,000 interest. So let's look at this one here. After how many years will my investment of $25,000 double at 8% simple interest? So how many years is asking for the time? So we're going to use T equals 100I over PR. So it's 100I over PR. Now, if I invest $25,000, P is $25,000. But for my investment to double, I need to earn $25,000 in interest, because then I'll have $50,000. So although P is $25,000, so too I is $25,000. So I'm going to replace I with $25,000, and we can see that R, because it's 8% per annum, R is just going to be 8. So putting that in our calculator, we get 12.5. Because R was per annum or per year, T will be years. So this investment of $25,000 will double to $50,000 in 12.5 years. All right, let's now look at some linear relations. So in the test, we're just going to look at midpoint, gradient, and length of a line segment. So I have all the formula here. The kind of question you'll be getting is calculate the midpoint, gradient, and length of a line segment joining these 2 points. So if you're not given a diagram, I suggest you draw one to help you know what's going on. So this line segment starts at -2, 2, which is there, and 2, -6, so I go across x, 2, y is -6. So what we're looking at is the distance, gradient, and length of the line segment joining these 2 points. So this is the line segment here. So let's calculate the distance, midpoint, and gradient. So first I'm going to start by calculating the midpoint. The midpoint is just as expected, the point along this line segment that's exactly halfway. So notice that the formula has all these x1s and x2s and all that. What does that mean? Well, x1 is just the x-coordinate of the first point, x2 is the x-coordinate of the second point, and y2 and y1 and so on. Make sure you remember the x-coordinate is always listed first. So for the midpoint, what you basically do is take the two x-coordinates, here minus 2 and 2, add them up and divide by 2. Then you take the two y-coordinates, add them up, and divide by 2. Now, if you want to use your calculator, you need to put in this first. So if you put that, you get 0. And then you put in this second. So you should get minus 2. So the midpoint is 0, negative 2. That means here, 0, negative 2 is the point halfway along the line segment. All right, let's now look at the gradient. For some reason, the gradient is labeled little m. You can use rise over run or this formula here. So to use rise over run, you always start at the point on the left and go right. How do I go from this point here to this point here? Well, I need to go across 4 to subtract negative 2 is 4. So the run here is actually 4. So always start at the left and go right. But I also, in addition to going 4 to the right, I actually need to go down 8. So the rise here is negative because I went down. So the gradient here is rise, negative 8 divided by run, which is 4. It's actually negative 2. So just note, if a line or line segment leans to the right, it has a positive gradient. To the left, it has a negative gradient. And if it's perfectly horizontal, gradient 0. So we expect a negative gradient here because our line segment leans to the left. We've got a negative answer to the negative right. Alright, let's now look at the distance or the length of this line segment. So I'm going to call D the length of the line segment from here to here. Notice we already have a right angled triangle. We're basically using Pythagoras. So the way that you figure out the longest side of a triangle using Pythagoras, it is the square root of shortest side squared plus shortest side all squared. So notice here that 4 was the run, negative 8 was the rise. It's the square root of run squared plus rise squared. So putting this in our calculator, we get square root of 80, which is about 8.94 or 8.9 units. When you're calculating the length of a line segment, just write units rather than centimeters or anything like that. All right, thank you so much for tuning into this video. This has been the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Have a great day.